All right, there we go. Well, we had a possessed soundboard there, but I think we've got that worked out. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a brand spanking new edition of Granite State Live. Great to have you along on this. What is today? Today's the 18th day of February, already 2025.
Between
Crazy.
the snow and the full moon and everything else, I just can't even believe that we're already almost to spring.
And the wind.
The wind.
And the wind.
Incredible wind.
Can't wait for spring. I'm your host, Keith Hansen, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, never apologizing for my toxic white masculinity, never, ever apologizing for being heavily armed, as I always am.
And I'm Therese Bastarash, or as my husband would call me, Badass Bastarash. Here we
like
are.
That. There we go. Now we're getting into it. All right, we've got a great show coming up for you tonight. Our call-in number, if you'd like to be a part of tonight's program, toll-free 833-603-TALK. That's toll-free 833-603-8255. And if you want to join us through video link, you can participate as well, too. Just send an email to granitestatelive@gmail.com. Put the words video link in the subject line, and the production team will get that link out to you lickety-split. That's granitestatelive@gmail.com. We have got a fantastic show.
Such an amazing show. We took a week off, and I think that was a mistake because I couldn't wait to get back here tonight. We have such a packed show tonight. I don't even think it should be a weekly show sometimes, but it's going to go fast.
Music to my ears.
So make sure you share this out. There's going to be a lot of good stuff on tonight's show. Go ahead, Keith.
All right. Well, first we're going to kick it off. If you were in downtown Concord yesterday, they're out. The Trump derangement syndrome posse celebrating President's Day with the Not My President's rally, or Not My President rally. So we'll get into that here in a second. Then, coming up right around 7:20 or so, we're going to be welcoming Republican New Hampshire State Representative Michael Grainger onto the program. He's going to be joining us to discuss House Bill 649, which would seek to eliminate passenger vehicle safety inspections. This is going to be an interesting conversation. I have to be honest, I'm all in favor of it. I think that it's a great idea. Interestingly enough, that the president of the New Hampshire Auto Dealers Association, who was quoted in a WMUR article, as well as Chuck Massaho, who is it Rockingham or Merrimack? Rockingham. Sheriff.
Either Rockingham or Hillsborough, yeah, definitely Merrimack.
Evidently, the sheriff of Rockingham County thinks you're a complete idiot. We'll quote him on that. No, literally. I mean, he made some pretty interesting comments about the general public out there not being able to figure out when their vehicles are safe. Kind of interesting. So we're gonna be talking with Michael Grainger about that coming up here in just a little bit. And then hour number 2. You're excited about this.
I am so excited. So for those of you that don't know who Claire Best is, she is absolutely phenomenal. Every time an article comes out on granitegrok.com, I can't wait to just whip through it. And I threw it out there. I wonder if she would come on the show. And I know Steve McDonald was like, does she do shows? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to ask. And she said yes. So if you've never heard of who Claire Best is, you are in for the biggest treat ever. On the second half of the show, you're going to find out all about New Hampshire's you said money, the corruption, our judicial system. This woman has done a deep dive, and she brings the receipts, and she's fascinating to listen to. So super excited that she's on the show tonight.
Yeah, that's going to be a great segment. Of course, that'll be coming up in the 8 o'clock hour.
Yes.
All right. So we were talking about the weather and the wind. It was blustery, to say the least, yesterday. It was cold yesterday. But it did not stop the unwashed, unemployed masses from hitting Main Street.
I have to say, I drove by them. And I actually felt pity. They were on the intersection. They were getting so whipped with the wind. But it was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, but you know what? They're mad as hell, and they're not going to take it anymore. So you got to, I guess, bundle up. I'm going to play this from WMUR because it's the only video television news service in the state. So I want to just play this this very, very quick clip of what downtown Concord looked like yesterday, specifically on the well, not the steps, but in front of the State House. If we can get that video up.
On a federal holiday celebrating our nation's leaders, a few hundred people in Concord standing opposed to the current chief executive.
This is the Not My President's Day protest.
One of 50 protests at state houses across the nation, Gary Burton from Meredith upset over the cuts of USAID and its workers.
Most of our government employees are hard, honest working people. And for him to demonize them the way he is, I think it's wrong.
Others focused on the overall flurry of executive actions they contend are illegal.
Well, there's so many of them, you can't even keep count of them.
But along with the signs criticizing President Donald Trump and his administration are also dozens of American flags, some protesters carrying one of each.
I think that the patriotic thing to do is to stand with the Constitution and the rule of law, and that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are not doing that.
Ren Betancourt here with Mom Joy, who's been going to protests since the Vietnam War. Joy says in this moment she feels our structure of government is at risk.
And I feel for all of us here in the United States that freedoms are being taken away from people who really need to be able to be who they are.
There are also protests happening at Tesla dealerships, congressional offices too, the ones of those dealerships taking aim at CEO Elon Musk, who's been tasked with making those big government cuts.
All right, where do we begin here? I think we had a little issue with the audio. Gary Burton was one of the individuals who was saying, well, you know, I think most government workers are honest, hardworking people, and, you know, their jobs are being eliminated. Well, I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around what I think is I'm listening to people here who I don't think they really understand how government works. I don't think they understand money. I don't think they understand how civics work. And we can take a deep dive into that. But do you really think that the people that are being eliminated right now from the federal government payroll, that these are people who are doing important work?
Well, you know, I would have to do more research on every single job that's being eliminated to be able to truly answer that. So let's be all fair, right? But the majority of what I'm seeing, I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel like every day is Christmas right now for America. I told you when I walked in the show, I have never had so much fun as I've had since January 20th. Every morning I wake up to find that we have hundreds of thousands of people over the age of 120 still collecting Social Security.
They're probably voting too, by the way.
Well, you know, the smallest amount of effort would have coded to catch that in our Social Security benefits. And here we know Social Security is potentially in jeopardy, you know, and yet they couldn't code to make certain that when someone dies, that their benefits stop. How insane is that? That alone, I mean, I wish I could have gotten out of my car yesterday and just asked them, how are you okay with the 150-year-old still getting Social Security benefits? Meaning that the 60-year-old or the 50-year-old right now may not have it when they turn retirement age. How are you okay? Aren't you grateful that we've caught that and that alone? I mean, I just can't wrap my head around their ideology.
You know, the least amount of government is the right amount of government.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. And I love it when you look at these government shutdowns. Every couple of months with budgeting issues, there's the potentiality of a government shutdown. And then the government shuts down. And let's be honest about this. The government doesn't shut down. That doesn't happen. But when you look at the people that are furloughed during these government shutdowns, those are the people that should be eliminated. These are the things that need to be eliminated.
Absolutely.
There is so much government bloat.
Right.
There is so much wasted money. I'll give a perfect example. Last November, I had to attend a meeting at the Commerce Department. This was for what's called a NOFO, or a Notice of Funding Opportunity. On the stage at the Commerce Department, explaining this incredibly complex, onerous, bureaucratic red tape process to avail or to have potentially made available to you a portion of money. I think it was like $20 million for technology development programs, infrastructure development and technology development programs. There were 7 people that were up on stage. I can tell you that each one of them, at least $125,000 a year, salary plus benefits, plus. These people literally fell asleep during the roundtable event, where people are having an opportunity to ask detailed questions about this notice of funding opportunity. Presenters were falling asleep. And how many times have you heard people say, well, man, that's a great job? I remember back, and of course I grew up in Massachusetts, the toll booth operators. That was a great job if you could get it, because you could sit on your ass, do absolutely nothing, make a pretty significant hourly rate wage, and then get benefits on top of that.
A pension.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great government job. Who doesn't want a job where you can sit on your ass, do nothing, collect the maximum amount of money, get Cadillac health care benefits and Cadillac retirement packages?
With no accountability.
With no accountability. And, you know, I look at these people that are out there, these Betancourt people. First of all, what rights are being taken away from people? What rights has the Trump administration in the 2 months, or less than that, what rights have been taken away?
You know, they're human rights. If you look at the Constitution, it's human rights. So if you're a human, you have unalienable rights. There's not women's rights. There's not trans rights. There's not black rights. There's not, you know, polka dot rights. If you're a human, you have rights. And we all have those same rights. And none of those rights are being, you know, they can't answer the question. If you watch on Twitter and they do the little snippets of all these protests, they'll ask that question and they can't answer it.
Of course not.
You know, and the thing is with the USAD money, if you're working for an organization and your job's eliminated because now they've stepped on the hose, right? The money's not flowing to you anymore. So now you get furloughed and you lose your job. That was not a non-government organization. That was an organization that was dependent on the taxpayer. And the question I have, if you drill it all the way down to like the local level, if you wanted that ladder truck, donate money. You can still donate money to all these organizations. Mm-hmm. If you're one of these protesters and you're upset that the government isn't funding your local animal shelter or whatever it might be that you're upset about, well, you go donate the money. You can voluntarily pay taxes. No one's going to stop you.
That's the thing about progressives. That's the thing about liberals and Democrats, is that they're great spenders of other people's money. You had mentioned wanting to get out of the car and talk to these people. I got to be honest. I would get out of the car and I would just ask a very simple question. What form of government do we have?
They don't know the answer to that. And they don't understand. I've done the most simple, dumbed down version of what's a democracy versus what's a constitutional republic for these individuals at the state house, and it works. I say, okay, democracy, we're all hungry right now. We decide we're going to take a vote. You all want pizza, but I want a salad. Guess what? I'm out of luck in a democracy because majority rules. Mm-hmm. I have to eat pizza. In a constitutional republic, me eating a salad is not jeopardizing anybody else, and I have the right to pursue my happiness. I still get to eat my salad. All of a sudden, then they understand why we say we're a constitutional republic that protects the minority, because you can't put anything into play that violates my human rights. That's what we are. It's not just a majority vote, because if it's a majority vote, whoever's in power ends up being the one to decide what happens. Mm-hmm. And yeah. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, we're coming up here on a break. So I just want to say one thing. In the back of the $20 bill, that's the White House, okay? And, hey, listen, for you people that don't like Trump, see this? Trump lives there, and that's his home for the next 4 years. So suck it up, buttercups, because you got 4 years to deal with it. So buckle up, because it's going to be a very interesting ride.
Don't let the snow hit you in the face.
No. Bundle up, because you're going to be cold out there during your protests. All right, we're going to take a very, very quick commercial break. And when Granite State Live returns, we're going to be joined by New Hampshire Republican State Representative Michael Grainger talking about House Bill 649 that seeks to eliminate passenger vehicle safety inspections. It's going to be a great conversation. Much more. Your calls coming up right after this. Don't go away.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it. He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer.
She's on the honor roll.
She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way. My kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping. Maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border and putting America first. Let me deliver a message from President Trump to the world. If you are considering entering America illegally, don't even think about it. Let me be clear. If you come to our country and you break our laws, we will hunt you down. Criminals are not welcome in the United States. For too long, weak leadership has left our borders wide open, flooding our communities with drugs, human trafficking, and violent criminals. Well, those days are over. Under President Trump, we are defending American families and restoring their safety. If you try to enter illegally, you will be caught. You will be removed, and you will never return. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. If you break it, you'll find consequences. Strong borders mean a stronger America. President Trump is making America safe again.
Jason, let's go see your room.
No, that's not right. How was it? Is it good?
Welcome back to Granite State Live. Toll-free 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255. If you'd like to be a part of the program, just dial up and let your voice be heard. Also, you can join via video. Just send the email to granitestatelive@gmail.com. Put the words video link in the subject line, and the production team will get that out to you. And I want to make sure that we mention this because the archives of the program, if you want to go back and catch something that you missed, or if you want to share the program through any of your social media channels, GraniteGrok.com, also on the Granite Grok X channel and the Facebook feed. And then on Facebook, Getter, CloutHub, and X, just search for Right America Media, and that will take you over to the Granite State Live archives. And then also, too, at ramtv.live. That's ramtv.live. If you go to shows, you can click on that. Or if you just go to ramtv.live/GSL for Granite State Live. And, of course, you can get all of the program archives that way. Make it nice and easy for you. So
it's growing every week.
You can put a digital bow on it and give it as a birthday gift. It's perfect. Love it. It's great. You know what else is great? Not getting screwed when you go to a car dealership. Not getting screwed when you go to get your vehicle inspected. Now, I got to be honest. I lived in Florida for 11 years. I loved being in Florida, where it cost me $56 a year to register my car and no inspection. And people would always say, well, you know, that, yeah, and look at the jalopies that are. I got to be honest with you, didn't see it. For as many people as there are in Florida, without vehicle safety and emissions inspections, people took pretty damn good care of their cars.
But you don't have rust in Florida.
That's true. No, you don't have rust. But, I mean, you also have people that are irresponsible, right? You have people, because I hear this all the time. I can't afford to put tires on my car. Okay, well, how much money do you spend on cigarettes and lottery tickets and tattoos and crap you don't need? So it's all about responsibilities. Responsible people put money into things that they may not necessarily want to put money into. Responsible people take care of their bills, and they take care of things that will continue to take care of them. They don't come up with excuses about why they can't take care of basic needs because they need to fuel other things, like lottery, like booze, like cigarettes, like you saw that commercial there on vaping. How much money do people waste on freaking vape juice? They'll pay for that, but they won't replace their bald tires.
As we were talking before the show, for those that don't know, we own a 4-bay garage. That's what we do. That's my husband's business. We employ 4 mechanics. And I can tell you, inspections, we hate them. We're booked out 3 weeks. You know, we don't have room in our schedule when you come in and all of a sudden we realize we need to do 6 big jobs on your car to get it to pass inspection, or it's got an electric issue and the lights are all on the dashboard at this point. And we'll talk more about that. But my husband and I talked about this quite a bit coming into this show. I'm curious, did Florida have liability insurance?
Yes.
You had to have liability insurance. So I come from California, where again, they had smog tests, but they didn't have inspections. And Kevin and I, when we talked about it, you know, we do see a lot of bald tires. We see a lot of suspension issues because we've got the potholes with the ice heaves and things like that. But I said, T, a lot of it is ridiculous. It's absolutely cuckoo cuckoo. Like if you have a little rust spot, you have a little ding in your windshield, that kind of thing. Like you got grandma who needs to get her medicine and get to the grocery store, and yet you've got an electrical problem. Her car's perfectly safe, and he's had to go and appeal the state to try and allow her to pass. Because again, if you pass somebody and you shouldn't have because they batted, you know, they give you their sob story, you could get caught because they audit you and then you lose their license to do inspections. So from a mechanic perspective, I really was interested in this bill and watching all the comments as it posted on social media. And I'm thinking, but in New Hampshire, we have the rest. We don't have liability insurance. You got the person who's completely clueless going down the road with bald tires and takes somebody out. So
when it comes to the liability insurance, and we're going to be pulling Michael Grainger on here, Republican state representative, in just a second. When it comes to the liability insurance, why wouldn't you have insurance on your
would
vehicle?
you want the state to require everyone now to have liability insurance?
No, I don't want the state to require anything. But what I want people to do is to have a basic level of common sense and say that motor vehicle crashes and the injuries that result, whether I'm at fault or not at fault, if somebody else is at fault, that those can be exceptionally costly. And so it would behoove me to go and get insurance. But again, that I think for a lot of people becomes this, well, it's a cost-benefit analysis.
Well, you just said you got the people at Walmart, though, that are getting the vape over taking care of the maintenance of their vehicle.
I'll give you a perfect example. There wasn't a week that went by when I hosted the morning show on WNTK and WUVR that I didn't have people coming to me asking me to promote a charity, whether it was on GoFundMe, maybe it was on Give, Send, Go, whatever the case may be. But they were asking me to, hey, listen, here's a situation where sob story, insert whatever sob story you want. And so this person needs money, and so we're doing a GoFundMe for them, and can you help to promote this? And it's like, I can't promote every, charity drive that comes across. More often than not, you would hear, and it's terrible when this happens, but somebody has, especially this time of the year, okay, house fires. Somebody has a house fire. They're renting a home.
Yep.
Their house burns down. All of their possessions are gone. And now they're looking for people to now replace their stuff.
Sure.
Renter's insurance, which covers all of your possessions, your clothing, your furniture, your electronic devices. Hell, it'll even cover your vape machine. Pennies per month. We're talking $30 or $40 a month to get a renter's policy. Why didn't you get a renter's policy? Now, somebody would say, well, Keith, you're blaming the victim. I'm not blaming the victim, but what I'm saying is that you understand what the potential losses are. You understand that if you live in a house, your house could burn down. You understand that if you're operating a motor vehicle on a roadway that the public has right-of-way or access to, you could get into a motor vehicle crash, whether it's one that you cause or one that somebody else causes, and you, unfortunately, are caught up in it. At what point do we start to stress personal responsibility and say, you know what? You are financially responsible for yourself. I don't want the state coming in and saying that it should be mandatory. I think people should have the intelligence and the common sense to say, I should protect myself and protect my financial interests from a potential loss through an available financial vehicle. It's called insurance. I think it's a great thing. And get it. And so that way there, if you've got a problem, you can use your insurance. You don't have to go with your hand out to other people,
Yeah, but
expecting other people to bail you out.
what if you've got the drug addict whose fix is more important to them than getting their liability insurance? I can't be responsible for that person coming down the road with their vehicle towards me with bald tires. So this is where Kevin and I landed. Let's do inspections with anything that's over, say, 8 years old, and let's just do tires and suspension.
Okay.
So the ABS light, if you have your rest of your brakes are working fine, a little dent, a little rust, a cracked windshield, let's not do it on the birthday. It's like the worst birthday gift ever. I don't know why New Hampshire does it on everyone's birthday.
Hey, congratulations. Instead of us giving you a gift, you're going to give us a gift. You're going to give us more of
So
your
you can have
money.
a really shitty birthday. So in California, it's on the anniversary of when you purchased the vehicle. So it's always just, 12 months out from when you bought the VOT.
Well, our next guest is quoted as saying, quote, very plain and simple, I think that vehicle safety inspections are a scam. Joining us on the video line is Michael Grainger, New Hampshire State Representative, Republican. Thank you so much for jumping on the program. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Mike, can you hear us? Mike, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
No. It was working.
There we go.
We got you.
We got you. Michael, how
Okay,
are you?
that wasn't me. I didn't change anything. Hi, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
No, that's okay. This is actually a very interesting topic. I got to be honest with you. The elimination. Now, this would be for passenger vehicles. I'm assuming this is not for commercial vehicles at all, just for passenger vehicles.
We tailored the legislation. We went through the RSAs line by line to make sure that it was only applying to passenger vehicles.
Okay. Now, I would be remiss. Of course, I'm reading from the WMUR article here. Grainger told the committee that he believes dishonest mechanics can use inspection systems to take advantage of unsuspecting car owners. Opponents of the bill, including representatives from law enforcement and New Hampshire auto dealers, that's special interest right there, told members of the Transportation Committee the inspection system makes roads safer. Chuck Massahos, the sheriff of Rockingham County, and a local mechanic, said most car owners, I need duct tape. Most car owners don't have the knowledge to spot serious safety issues with their vehicles. Quote, the average person has no idea if their tires are bald.
I don't think he's correct about that.
If you can't get out of your car and look at your tires, you probably shouldn't be operating a motor vehicle on my roadway. Period. Am I wrong?
I don't think that that's actually true. I think most people know that you take a penny and you shove it in the thing, and if it covers the head, then you're good, and if it doesn't, then you're bad.
I would say most people know that their brakes are going, their tires haven't been, taken care of. There's a few that come in that actually mortify my husband. But I will tell you, as a business owner of a mechanic shop, there is a ton of racket fleecing going on with every single light on the dash. I mean, it really should be stripped way, way back. My husband, like I said earlier, has had to go and appeal for the little old lady whose ABS light is on and she can't afford to fix that, but her brakes are perfectly operable. She has a car that is safe, and now she's not going to be able to go get her medications, go get her groceries. And that's just cuckoo. Like, we need to really look at all of it and scale it way, way back. But I think the fact that New Hampshire doesn't have liability and the fact that we do have a huge rust issue, that at least suspension, maybe cars that are older, should be checked out. But, for the most part, I would agree that there's, especially the dealerships, they're making so much money of, like we talked earlier, some of the dealerships will do free inspection for the 10 years after you purchase your car. But yeah, you have a little spot like this and you do get audited. You'll have the state come through. And if you're not failing people for every single thing that they've put in there, you could lose your ability to even inspect your clientele's cars, which they come to you because they have come to trust you. We've got a wait list that's 3-4 weeks out right now, scheduling wise. We've got 4 full-time mechanics, people coming to get it inspected, and we're praying we don't find anything because we really don't have room in the schedule to take care of them right now. But the bigger shops, they'll do a whole long laundry list. And we've actually told some of our customers, go to Jiffy Lube, have your inspection there because they don't do work. and then call us with what they find, and then we can schedule you in and get the parts and take care of you and get you on the road. But truly, from a mechanic's wife's perspective of owning a business, we would love to see it scaled way, way back and what's required to pass inspection.
So
we had a bill last year, HB 1633. I was a co-sponsor on it, and Leah Cushman, I believe, was on it as well. I believe you know her. Yeah. And what that did was it merely scaled it back, and it got rid of some of the worst, most egregious offenses, or not offenses, but the most egregious examples of requirements, there's the word for it, that were in the inspection standards. So, for instance, if you had a crack on a brake light that was not permitting water to get through, that would be fine. You don't have to replace the whole brake light. It was killed in the Senate. It passed the House. Most of these sort of bills do pass the House, but the Senate killed it. And that was referenced by the chairman of the committee earlier today when they did the exec session on the bill. It got out of committee 8-8, and the chairman did a very good job defending the bill. And he went through the whole history of all the bills that are related to this subject matter, and how they've tried everything. And he's eventually said, enough is enough. We should just get rid of it.
What are the reasons primarily? What have been the major reasons identified why this bill or similar variations of this bill have not passed in previous years?
The Senate.
We didn't have the majority.
It almost always gets through the House. The Senate kills it.
And is it on the Republican side, Democrats? I mean, I would imagine the Democrats probably want.
It's usually bipartisan.
Is it really? Okay.
Bipartisan on the Senate side. Okay. Democrats are less likely to support the bill in the House, and Republicans are more likely to support it in the House. But it is not exactly a straight partisan issue. So on the Senate side, it's usually both sides killing it, and in the House side, it's both sides passing it.
Okay.
I wonder if you did something along the lines of if you have liability insurance, you're exempt from an inspection. That way, if you take someone else out because you're stupid and you didn't get your suspension or your new tires, then I mean, it doesn't bring back a life.
It's not as simple. I could be wrong. This isn't my normal area of law, so I don't have the insurance rules 100% down. But I believe that you are actually required to have a certain amount of money already set aside for the purpose of coverage in order to exploit the no insurance requirement thing. I think you're. I could be wrong about this because it's been a couple of years, but it's not as simple as simply saying you are not required to have liability insurance.
Interesting.
We've got about 40
Of course,
seconds.
it's not enforced.
We got about 40 seconds here before we have to go into a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to have you back on. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that are...
the ridiculousness?
The ridiculousness of this. I mean, certain things we understand, bald tires, things like that. But some of the things that may cost a person hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to fix that are really, in the grand scheme of things, not directly affecting the safe operation of that motor vehicle. So I want to focus on that when we come back. And if you do have any questions for our guests, 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255. Feel free to jump on the program. Much more Granite State Live coming up right after this. Don't go away.
You don't have to wait for a jail sentence to get help from Narcotics Anonymous. This doesn't have to be your bottom. It is possible to stop using drugs. Call Narcotics Anonymous. We can help you.
Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border and putting America first. Let me deliver a message from President Trump to the world. If you are considering entering America illegally, don't even think about it. Let me be clear. If you come to our country and you break our laws, we will hunt you down. Criminals are not welcome in the United States. For too long, weak leadership has left our borders wide open. flooding our communities with drugs, human trafficking, and violent criminals. Well, those days are over. Under President Trump, we are defending American families and restoring their safety. If you try to enter illegally, you will be caught, you will be removed, and you will never return. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. If you break it, you'll find consequences. Strong borders mean a stronger America. President Trump is making America safe again.
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the-right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Throw that ball, Diane. Woo! You got this.
That is one of the coolest graphics I think I've ever seen. I absolutely love that graphic. That is pretty wild. Welcome back to Granite State Live. Great to have you along on this blustery Tuesday night. 833.
Not as windy as last night.
Not as windy as last night. Although, you know what? It was actually windier up in the Lake Sunapee region today than it was yesterday.
Doing barn chores, I seriously felt like Laura Ingalls. Like Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, I can imagine. 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255 if you would like to be a part of the program or if you have a question for our guest. We are talking about House Bill. What number is that again? It's I just had it. Where is it here? 649. That's right, 649, which would eliminate the yearly safety inspections for passenger vehicles. The public safety message or public service message that was just on from the NHTSA, New Hampshire, National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. Based upon federal highway data coming from the NHTSA, about 2% of all motor vehicle crashes are due to vehicle safety issues. 2%. And by the way, texting is not a vehicle safety issue. Texting is because you're an idiot and you're trying to bifurcate your attention.
Inspections don't help with texting.
Inspections don't help stupid people doing stupid things behind the wheels of motor vehicles. But joining us via video link is Republican State Representative Michael Grainger, who is the author and primary sponsor of that bill. Again, Mike, thanks so much for jumping on the program. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And I have to take a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek approach with a lot of this, and I have to be sarcastic with this just because I think for a lot of these things, this is one that I actually agree with, though. I think that this is, by and large, this is onerous. It's unnecessary. I think it costs people a lot of money. And listen, for every really good mechanic that's out there, there's a mechanic out there that recognizes a person who doesn't know their ass from their elbow about a car. And if they can separate that fool from their money, as the saying goes, they are very, very quick to do that. And so I find it very interesting that the New Hampshire Auto Dealers Association, Dan Bennett, who is the president of that, is saying that the current inspection system benefits car owners by catching issues early. It's like with everything else, though, that we don't have to have a piece of legislation that mandates a person go and get this. I think a person should be responsible enough to say, hey, I should probably, when I have my oil changed, have them take a look at this. If I go to Jiffy Lube or, any of these other car care, Midas or something, they're probably going to tell me if there's an issue. And then I can make the determination as to whether or not it's something that I need to fix. Now, that being said, I like 25-pound monkeys. I don't like 800-pound gorillas. So if there's a small problem, I like to deal with it when it's that 25-pound monkey. If I ignore it, and I learned this the hard way when I was a kid. Oh, the car's making this really weird noise. I'll just ignore it and it'll correct itself. And that turned into a very, very expensive mistake. I learned that very early on. People should have the responsibility level to say, hey, listen, you know what? There's an issue with my vehicle. I know I can feel it pulling to the left or to the right. I know that I'm starting to hydroplane or I'm starting to lose contact with the roadway when I'm in icy conditions or wet conditions. I should probably have this taken care of. With 2% of motor vehicle crashes coming from defective equipment or safety issues with vehicles, that to me isn't compelling evidence that we need to have this type of requirement put on the average person.
There's a point on that 2% number that is important. 2% claimed. So that means that if somebody gets in an accident and they know it's their fault and they want to blame the brakes, they're included in that 2%. So we received testimony from Brian Chase, and Brian Chase used to run the New Hampshire State Inspection and Emissions Program, and he's also a world-class vehicles forensics expert. He's done thousands of after-crash analyses of various crashes, and you might be interested to know the total number of vehicle crashes that were actually caused by component failure that he's discovered is 4. And all of those were in states that have vehicle safety inspections.
Interesting.
No, and I think one of the things too, because people are looking at it and saying, okay, well, in states that these numbers are disproportionate in terms of the respective populations of these states. 13 states that have no safety emissions or VIN, vehicle identification number inspections, that are required by law: Arkansas, Alaska, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Montana, North Dakota, South Carolina, South Dakota, Florida, Washington, and Wyoming. Florida definitely has a significant population down there. I mean, this is not a sparsely populated state. And again, when you look at the state down there, I think, and of course, we don't have rust, and there's no road salt and everything else. But when you look at the vehicles that are down there, it's pretty rare to see the blue smoke belching jalopy going down the middle of 75 that somebody looks at and says, that thing is a rolling safety violation, somebody should stop it. I think by and large people take care of their vehicles.
I saw one today and I was like, there's no way that van passes inspection just by looking at the bodywork on it. But you're right. I mean, the lenses now alone are like $300 to $400 for a brake light lens, and it's not really
if that
a safety
vehicle
issue.
If that vehicle did pass inspection, though, it would be because there's another side to this. There's the vehicles that should pass inspection and don't. And then there's also the vehicles that shouldn't pass inspection and do, because the garages can go either way. And so if you're going to a garage and you're expecting to get an actual itemized list of all the problems with your vehicle, so I used to take my VW to the dealership specifically for that purpose. They would be very, very thorough. I would pay way too much, but I knew they wouldn't miss a thing, and they didn't miss a thing because they wanted to charge me for everything. Repair possible.
Yeah.
But there's also places that will pass your vehicle despite having major problems. And so if we can't trust the inspection stations to be accurate or to be fair, there's really no point in my mind to keep it going. And I was very careful with this legislation when we were drafting it of not actually taking out any of the requirements for vehicles on the road, because if there is a vehicle that is being driven and is unsafe, I think that the police should be able to stop them. And RSA 265, that chapter, actually allows police to stop them. And that's how they do it in states where they don't have the vehicle inspections. And it seems to work pretty well. And a lot of those states have a lot of salt and snow.
Yeah, I mean,
especially in the
I'm
Midwest.
just looking at the list that's here: Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Washington State, and Wyoming. I mean, these are states that are going to get a level of snow and icing that I think is on par with what you would see here in New Hampshire. I'm really, really, really surprised, especially in a live free or die state, that this is still a thing.
The more you guys talk about and listening to the statistics, I would love to see my husband home before 8:00 at night every night. It's the inspections that come in, and, he's doing the best he can to get that sticker put on that and keep him getting to work the next day. But it's, they come in and they audit you, and they really do favor the dealerships. They want, and, it's almost like the washing machine that goes out the day after the warranty, and every light on the dash goes on. It's like they build it to break down to make you come back in to do a ridiculous amount of work. And the electronics involved, it's tough. It's tough sometimes to get through and pass somebody, and you want to pass them, and they've made it so difficult to even pass them. And it's not even a safety issue.
It's funny you should mention that. I just had a washing machine break yesterday. I've owned it for less than 2 years. So
Yeah, you want to go get the old Maytag that's 30 years old. That's not going to let you down. They make things disposable, and I swear that that's what they're doing with the newer cars.
All right. We actually have a caller, so we're going to jump over to the phone line. I don't know who it is calling in, but caller, welcome to the program. Oh, okay.
Oh, we lost them.
I guess we lost that caller. Okay. What's the prognosis on this bill? You think this is going to pass this time, or do you think it's going to?
I think it's going to pass the House. We have a strategy for the Senate, but I don't want to ruin that strategy by talking about it on the air. It's almost certain to pass the House, in my opinion. It is out of committee with 8 supporting and 8 opposing. The chairman of that committee is in support of it. That is Representative Tom Walsh, and so is his vice chair, Representative Ted Gorski. And they get to determine what the actual motion will be when it hits the floor. And so they're going to probably suggest ought to pass, and I'm expecting it to actually pass after vigorous debate. And from there, we have to go into figuring out how to get it past the Senate. And we have some plans for that. If people are interested in helping, what they can do is they can go to freehampshire.com/cars. That is freehampshire.com/cars. One of our activists set that up. And it just redirects to a page that tells you how you can help encourage your state representatives to pass the bill.
Excellent.
All right, sounds good. And we'll make sure that we get that up to freehampshire.com/cars.
Cars, plural.
Cars. All right, sounds good. Anything else that you're working on that we can highlight here before we let you go?
Well, I have a lot of bills. I work with the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance quite a bit, so I'm a Liberty guy, and I'm pushing a lot of Liberty bills. So tomorrow I'll be introducing a bill related to the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, and the UN, and ensuring that the state of New Hampshire and its political subdivisions don't enforce edicts from these globalist organizations.
Thank you.
That sounds very good. We like that.
Yeah.
Michael, I want to thank you for all your hard work down at the State House. You guys have been in session, and for those that don't know that are watching, our state reps only make $100 a year, but yet we're one of the largest legislative bodies, I believe, at least in the country, if not even farther than that, with 400 state reps.
The biggest other than Congress.
Other than Congress. So it's pretty impressive. You guys are down there. You're working really hard. And
hey, but
let's
not negate the fact that he gets that really cool license plate. And he gets you get free tolls, don't you? You get to just zip right through and not have to pay your tolls.
I would hope so.
What they should do
is you get an orange
free,
Easy Pass.
They should give you free vehicle inspections for life.
That would be fantastic.
See, you're not playing the game the right way. So you got to ask for perks there: the $100 a year, the license plate, the free tolls, and free vehicle inspections for life. No, listen, I hope that this bill passes. I hope they eliminate it. And again, I don't really see the need for this. I think obviously commercial vehicles that's a big aspect of this. When you look at the size of those vehicles, the types of the vehicles that are sharing the roadway with those passenger vehicles, I want to know that those 18-wheelers are absolutely safe. Those very, very large vehicles, those are safe. But I think for the average person...
And just to back up for a moment, since we have Michael on, New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, one of the most fantastic things that they do, when they do a voting scorecard for all the reps, which I absolutely love. When I came new into the scene, that was a huge resource for me. In addition to that, for all the reps, they actually will do a little bulletin when they walk in with how New Hampshire Liberty Alliance has fallen on a piece of proposed legislation up against the Constitution, whether it's constitutional or not constitutional. So for a new rep that's coming in and they're drinking from a fire hose, because everyone throws mud at the wall this time of year, all kinds of pieces of legislation you guys are having to weed through. But once it gets through committee and it gets to the House floor and they go in, and these are the ones that they're going to be talking about today, they kind of have a guide that they can go by that has a ton of volunteers that have done tremendous amount of diligence to try and keep New Hampshire as constitutional as possible. And I really want to applaud you and all the hard work that New Hampshire Liberty Alliance has done for the state of New Hampshire. It's really impressive.
Thank you. And for anybody watching who is state rep or otherwise, pay attention to the gold standard. That's the publication that you're mentioning here. And if you vote the gold standard, we'll get more liberty in New Hampshire.
And it's a good way to know how your state reps are doing come voting season, whether or not you should be primarying them and having someone else run, or whether or not they're good to keep in the seat.
Exactly.
Sounds good. All right. Republican State Representative Michael Grainger, thank you so much for jumping on the program. Appreciate it, and appreciate your work on House Bill 649.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for having me on. Good luck to you.
All right. Thank you. All right. We're going to be coming up on top of the hour here in just a couple of moments. Hour number 2 of the program. You're excited about this.
I am so excited about this.
Why?
So Claire so she has ties to New Hampshire, and I'll let her kind of talk into why New Hampshire became interesting to her, but she's fascinating. She is from California. She is a TV film producer, documentary. She is just such a researcher, though. And what's really impressive is every time Claire comes out with something, she brings the receipts. Like, she's really intelligent. She's articulate. She's got it pulled together. And it's just, you can't make this stuff up, Keith. Like, it's really, like, we know evil is evil, right? Mm-hmm. But until you start to see, like, New Hampshire's really small, and you start to see the players and how they're all intertwined and working together to kind of do what they're doing. It's really unsettling in some ways, but it's also very, it's almost like you're reading a really suspense novel. And we are now in a place where people have been kind of studying this for a long time. Like, everyone's really starting to understand it. And social media can be good and bad. But what it's doing is we're creating our own media. We're starting to connect the dots. And like we said, we only have WMUR. Well, no, we have this show. We have GraniteGrok.com. We have other ways now that we can be the media, and we can start to educate each other so we know what we're actually looking at. And it's really fascinating. And I'm just over the moon excited that she said yes to coming on tonight.
Awesome. So she'll be joining us here in just a couple of moments. We're going to take a very, very quick break. And when we come back, Claire Best, plus your phone calls and much, much more. 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255 if you would like to jump on the program and share your thoughts about anything that Claire is talking about, or if you want to share any thoughts on House Bill 649, eliminating those vehicle safety inspections too. We'd love to hear from you as well. Much more of Granite State Live coming up right after this, folks. Please stick around. Don't go away.
My drugs were legal.
My drugs were prescribed.
My drugs came from the liquor store.
From the grocery store.
From the dispensary.
I started it because I needed it.
I wanted to quit using.
I couldn't stop using.
I'm destroying my family.
I lost my family.
Then I found a safe place.
Narcotics Anonymous.
And I stopped and got clean.
I stopped.
I stopped.
You can stop too.
For local meetings in New Hampshire, call 1-888-NA-HELP-U or visit us at www.gsana.org.
We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Jason, let's go see your room.
That's not right. How is it? Is it good?
Welcome back to Granite State Live, hour number 2 of the program on this Tuesday evening, a blustery one at that, the 18th day of February 2025. Great to have you along. I'm Keith Hansen.
And I'm Therese Baster-Ash.
Our call-in number, and I guess we're having a little bit of an issue with those phone lines again. That's okay. I know they're working on those diligently. So 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255. If you would like to jump on the program, video links are up as well, too. So granitestatelive@gmail.com. Just put the words video link in the subject line, and the production team will send that out. And just as a reminder, granitegrok.com. You can always catch archives of the program there on the Granite Grok X channel and Facebook feed. And then on Facebook, Getter, Clout Hub, and X on the Right America Media channels. You can also go to Right America Media at ramtv.live. That's ramtv.live, and you can catch archived versions of the show right there. But speaking of Granite Grok, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that they are shaking up politics. And they've been keeping politicians on their toes for nearly 2 decades, and they are just getting started. I was just going through the site the other day, and it's actually very impressive to see some of the collaborations that they have going now with other states, also in Vermont as well, too. And having been a broadcaster in Vermont, it's always interesting to see people focusing on some of the absolute lunacy and stupidity that goes on in the Green Mountain State. But that is Vermont. Since launching in 2006, the Grok has grown from New Hampshire's top conservative blog into the leading voice for political news, commentary, and analysis from across New England. And now it's the go-to destinations for those conservatives in Vermont, Maine as well, and beyond. And after a summer revamp, granitegrok.com, cleaner, faster, and easier to navigate with fewer ads and a streamlined way to find the content that matters most to you. Best of all, the Grok has brought back the podcast from local activists. Kim Moran, I know, is on quite a bit. If you are interested in Second Amendment issues, boy, I'll tell you, she's got her finger on the pulse over there. So you can catch that at granitegrok.com. And, of course, Granite State Live, the program that you're watching right now. If you want to get your op-eds or press releases published on granitegrok.com, just email Steve McDonald at steve@granitegrok.com. That's steve@granitegrok.com. So bookmark it today, granitegrok.com. Follow them on Facebook, X, and stay up to date with everything that's happening. And you had mentioned, too, because I know you'd love to talk about that little magnifying glass. You click on that magnifying glass and you type in whatever you want. And so our next guest is somebody that if they go on to granitegrok.com, they click on that magnifying glass icon, and they type in Claire Best, they're going to get a lot of information.
They will. And, you know, she's done such a marvelous job. And I've been just in awe of who is this woman? What is she about? And I had the honor of actually getting her on the phone. Someone had connected her, given her my phone number. And the conversation was just amazing. This woman, the desire she has to unravel the truth about New Hampshire, you know, it hit me. This woman cares, like she deeply cares about what's going on here in New Hampshire, and she's willing to share it out with everyone, even if it puts her in some sort of jeopardy. And it truly is, because she's uncovering the corruption at every level, our judiciary, our DCYF, the Catholic Church, and just down the line, and all the connections here in New Hampshire. And, you know, she's fascinating. She's a film and TV agent in Los Angeles. She works on documentaries, but she's covering everything from, like I said, the court corruptions and the failings of the DCYF and the children, which anyone who's followed me for any time, that is my, you know, the children are my why. And how do we help family courts? So I was there with Leah Cushman last week at the State House, looking at the fact that our family court system, there's a whole hearing on it. You know, they're not, every divorce should be 50-50 out of the gate, unless they agree to something different because it works for them. Unless someone's actually been tried and convicted of a crime, why would one parent have more time with the child than the other? And, you know, these marital masters, but, you know, just as you start to unravel some of these individual stories that you hear from families, you start to wonder what the heck is going on, because these judges are retaliatory. They're not really clear-minded in the way that they're ruling on things. And so there's enough there to kind of get someone to have a check in their spirit when they're looking and listening to some of what's going on. But Claire really has gotten to the bottom of what's going on. And one that I tweeted out this last week, and within 24 hours, I don't have a big following on Twitter. I haven't been that active out there, but 11,000 hits. And it was, how the heck did Ghislane Maxwell, how did she hide in Bradford for a year here in New Hampshire? And yet nobody questioned who harbored her, who covered for her, who helped her buy that house. Like, how did that happen? And no one's even raising an eyebrow. And so Claire has information on that. She's, like I said, on Granite Grok, she's published some things there. So I'm really excited to have her on the show tonight.
All right. Well, Claire, welcome to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much. Good to meet you both and be on the show. And thank you so much. And I want to give a shout out to Granite Grok as well.
I don't know if your audio is going out or not, Claire.
Hold on one second, Claire. Audience might hear you, but we can't.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Oh, it's out of sync. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. We got you.
There's a slight out of sync.
There may be a small little latency issue, but we've got you now, so you're good.
Okay. So thank you both for having me, and thank you for the introduction. And I also want to give a shout out to Granite Grok and to Steve, because when I started looking into what was going on in New Hampshire, I actually did reach out to several news organizations and just got stonewalled. And Steve was very gracious and allowed me to publish, and really didn't edit at all anything I said. And I'm very, very appreciative. It's extremely unusual for a news organization to let someone just, get it all out. And so huge thank you. I think that freedom of the press is one of the biggest issues in New Hampshire, which I discovered in all of this. And I think that the first thing that I'd like to address is how and why it matters so much to me. So, as Therese mentioned, I'm a film and television agent, so I work in the media, and I have a background in documentaries. And in 2015, actually in 2014, my husband, who was an alum of St. Paul's School, received a letter from the rector of St. Paul's, the headmaster of St. Paul's, regarding a criminal sexual assault case involving two of their students, Owen Labrie and later known as Chessie Prout. And at the time, we had two teenage daughters who were looking at high schools. He'd had a great experience at that school. We were considering it. And, I looked at this letter from the school, and I was thinking, something's wrong here. Why is this school not protecting the privacy of the students? And so and because of my documentary background, I just sort of started paying attention to it. And so the following year, when the trial took place, I knew several of the families around those students, and they had maintained to me that the story that I was seeing and being told in the news was not the case of what really happened at all. And so I just started kind of digging in. And finally, in 2016, a criminal justice blogger called his thing is called Simple Justice blog, and he had written several articles on the Labrie case, and how wrong it was, and then on the request for a retrial. And I suddenly started seeing in his blog that there were things in the trial testimony that just hadn't been reported on in the news, and that would have made a massive material difference to the whole case. And the case became a landmark case for the US, and in fact thousands of students have found themselves caught up in what can only be called as kangaroo court. So anyway, long story short, I my family have a house in New Hampshire. We're taxpayers. So I have an interest in what happens in the state. I love the state. I come in the summers. And I just started digging. And through this case, I, came across the Diocese of Manchester cases and essentially what is fraud in those. I came across the police detectives, and, horrible fraud with them. The justices who denied exculpatory evidence, Brady violations, cover-ups. And then I came across, the family courts, which is how I met Therese, and I met Leah Cushman. And, when Leah was on the board or the panel that was put together, I reached out to her and gave her all the information that I had. I've also been in contact with YDC victims. I've been in contact with Diocese of Manchester victims, and also Diocese of Manchester wrongly accused priest, Father Gordon McRae. And I've been in contact with lawyers. I've also had phone calls from lawyers from out of state who've dealt with New Hampshire, who have read my articles in Granite Grok and commended me, got in contact. I've also been contacted by whistleblowers inside some of the nonprofits who've thanked me for what I've done. And so, I care about it because in the end, what we leave behind is for our children, and they have to live in a more just world than what we're living in. And I think that New Hampshire is, it's first in the nation, and, it likes to call itself first in the nation. And, let's call it first in the nation. It is first in the nation for corruption as well. And if we can handle the corruption in New Hampshire across the courts, across the child welfare services, et cetera, across the education, then we can actually set a pattern for everybody else in the nation. And I'd really like to persuade Elon Musk's Doge to focus on New Hampshire because, unlike many states, the core of power resides with relatively few people who all overlap each other in nonprofits, on boards, and et cetera. And so that's, really kind of what drives me. And it's easier in a way for me to be able to do this, somewhat at a distance, sitting here in California and visiting New Hampshire, occasionally, because, my livelihood doesn't depend on federal grants from New Hampshire. And I think a lot of what has kept people from being able to speak the truth in New Hampshire is the number of people who are tied to nonprofits or other grants that their livelihoods depend on, that literally prevents them from being able to speak up, including the media.
Right. A lot of people are afraid of retaliation. It is a small state, and the connections, when you start to follow some of this, you see the same names showing up over here, over there, and this one knows this one, and it's really fascinating to read the diligence that you have unraveled. And recently, I think it was just recently, I saw a quote by you, 10 Ferry Street in Concord, that building is probably the most worrisome building that you feel could be in the United States. Tell me about that.
Yes. So 10 Ferry Street in Concord, New Hampshire, I came across it sort of by accident. But I started looking into the Catholic Children's Services, which is tied to the Diocese of Manchester cases. And that is now, I think, Children's Trust Fund, which is in 10 Ferry Street. And then somebody who is a whistleblower said to me, oh, that's where this other company is, Maximus Inc. So then I started looking into Maximus Inc. and their ties to the Catholic charities and their ties to the government. And then I came across other companies, Dincor, which I think in 2005, 2006, was accused of being involved in child trafficking, and when Rumsfeld was Secretary of Defense, I guess. And then I found another company there, Data Miner, which is a CIA company. I found, what else did I find? Oh, Boston Scientific, which is tied to John Sununu, Quest Diagnostics, International Rescue Commission, which is tied to the UN and also tied to, basically tied to Jeffrey Epstein, and various others there. Oh, and a thing called Virtus LLC, which was started in 1999 by father and then later Monsieur, now revoked Monsieur Edward Arsenault of the Diocese of Manchester. And, it poses as protecting God's children. And I guess it's an instruction program that is supposed to be given to children to prevent them from being victims of sexual predators. But in fact, I found out from a priest that there are two versions of it, and there's one version that's given to children, and there's one version that's given to adults, and the one that's given to children, apparently it does involve some kind of sexualization and grooming. So it's very disturbing what's going on.
And I know for me, right after I read that quote from you or one of your articles, wherever I saw that, I was doing some diligence. I had tweeted out this week that, why has nobody questioned Maxwell, Ghislane Maxwell being hidden in New Hampshire for over a year, and who harbored her? No one's questioning, no one's wanting to do an investigation. Who aided her and embedded her. And I did my diligence, and Granite Realty LLC was the entity that paid for that house with $1 million cash. And that LLC was opened that same week that the home was purchased using the 10 Ferry Street address. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm even now starting to connect the dots, and it's almost like this mystery novel that, is in real time that you start to unravel. And you just, Maximus, I've heard about, they're right in there with USAID and all this money that we're hearing about from Doge, correct? Do you think
correct.
As Elon and the USAID they start to kind of put their foot on the fire, on the hose that's supplying the cash to all these entities, that we're going to see it naturally come to surface, all those that were involved in the corruption, because now the reason they're in the corruption has been cut off, the money?
Well, I think it's a very good question. Just one quick correction. The Granite Realty LLC, I believe it's actually registered at another address, which is a very important address, which is 2.5 Beacon Street, Concord, New Hampshire. And so at 2.5 Beacon Street, which basically looks like a pretty empty storefront, there's a whole load of non-profits registered there, and shell companies, and there's a company there that's tied to Sam Bankman-Fried, for example.
Well, we're going to come
from
back.
The FTX.
I hate to interrupt, Claire. We're right at a commercial break, so hold that thought. We're going to go to commercial, and we're going to come back, and let's talk about Beacon Street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Much more with Claire Best coming up right after this quick break. 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255. Or send an email link to granitestatelive@gmail.com. Put the words video link in the subject line, and we will get you connected to the program if you have a question for Claire. I'm curious to see more. I want to know more about the Ghislane Maxwell issue. I mean, out of every place in the world that this woman could possibly have been hiding out, she's hiding out for a year right here in New Hampshire. So kind of makes you wonder why. So we're going to talk more about that when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
I'm Christine Ohm, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border and putting America first. Let me deliver a message from President Trump to the world. If you are considering entering America illegally, don't even think about it. Let me be clear. If you come to our country and you break our laws, we will hunt you down. Criminals are not welcome in the United States. For too long, weak leadership has left our borders wide open, flooding our communities with drugs, human trafficking, and violent criminals. Well, those days are over. Under President Trump, we are defending American families and restoring their safety. If you try to enter illegally, you will be caught. You will be removed, and you will never return. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. If you break it, you'll find consequences. Strong borders mean a stronger America. President Trump is making America safe again.
Jason, let's go see your room.
That's not right. How was it? Is it good?
Welcome back to Granite State Live, 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255 if you'd like to be a part of the program, if you have a question for Claire.
So picking up where we left off, Claire, my understanding reading up on some of Maxwell, one, the old saying, you come home to roost, right? And I've heard, not necessarily from you, but I've heard from others that New Hampshire is one of the very few states that for whatever reason, we don't have any oversight over LLCs. It's very easy for people to set up a shell company and to kind of move money around, kind of like the little Switzerland of, the United States here in New Hampshire, where no one would ever think that there could be anything sinister truly going on. But people are able to kind of throw money into these LLCs, and there's very little oversight. I think South Dakota or North Dakota, one of the two, is very similar in that. When I read up on Maxwell and Jeffrey, yes, they were sex traffickers, but they were also the entities that moved money around for the elite. Did we lose Claire? No, she's there.
Yep.
So did we lose her? No, she's there.
Nope, she's
so
there.
Claire, is that true? Has that been your experience in doing your diligence, that you kind of feel like there's maybe a lot of money going on here in New Hampshire that doesn't have any oversight? And how is New Hampshire different than other states in that respect?
Yes. So New Hampshire, according to I think it was 2021 report by this group of international journalists, has $932.5 billion in secret hidden accounts, LLCs, trusts, nonprofits, and they're known as the Pandora Papers. They're also the Panama Papers, and they're also the Paradise Papers. And how does it? And that amount, as far as I can find out, is more than any other state in the United States, and is the second largest amount in the world.
So there's reason to believe that if people are trafficking money around or laundering money around, or they're taking it from USAID and they're finding a place to park it and they want to shelter it under, a children's trust, something that sounds wonderful and sweet and innocent, that they might do it in a state where there's no oversight, where they can kind of get away with it, right? And then, some backdoor kickbacks maybe going on where, hey, look the other way over here, judge, and we'll give you an extra $100,000 over here, and you can sit on this board and make this salary. And so that's a lot of what I see when I read your articles. In addition,
and that's exactly what's going on.
And then in addition to that, I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it looks like Maxwell's fiance or whoever helped with the house, his line of business was container logistics. That made me almost that made me almost sick to my stomach. Like, what, knowing that there's the sex trafficking piece, and then he's overseeing containers going in and out of ports, and like, I don't mean to be conspiracy, but that was a little worrisome to see that. Would you agree? Yeah. And then one of the
yes.
Go ahead. Anything you have on that?
No, yeah. So sure. So I mean, Ghislane Maxwell's husband, whose name escapes me right now, but he was a Coast Guard out of Boston, I believe, and they lived on the coast for a short while. And then they moved to the tucked away in New Hampshire, in Bradford, New Hampshire. And the house in New Hampshire was bought through this LLC called Granite Realty LLC. And that was that purchase was registered by the deed of registrars, who's an elected official, whose address happens to be right next door to the Merrimack County Sheriff. And so I have to believe that, and the deed of registrars, I believe she came out of the Banking Commission. So, you don't just register $1 million cash house without kind of knowing who's doing it and what's going on, and I can tell you, I know from personal experience that New Hampshire has a bunch of very nosy officials out there who've nosed into me. So I find it absolutely impossible that Ghislane Maxwell could buy this house with $1 million in cash with a deed of register as an elected official doing this next to the Merrimack County Sheriff. And when she gets caught, nobody knows anything, which is what the newspapers said. I just don't buy it.
Wasn't the title for the transfer of the deed done out of a law firm in Boston? But wasn't it? And then wasn't Shaheen and Gordon, who she first reached out to, at least when she was taken into custody, but were they part of the actual real estate transaction as well?
I don't know if they were part of the real estate transaction, but when she was taken into custody, Shaheen and Gordon were her defense lawyers in New Hampshire. And the specific person who was her lawyer, whose name was Lawrence, I can't remember what his last name is, but he had come out of New York and had dealt with a very high profile drug trafficking case in the early 90s, I believe. But I think that, if you're Senator Jean Shaheen, why would you let your husband's law firm, Bill Shaheen was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager in 2007, ran her super PAC in 2016. Why would you take on the most wanted woman in the world? It's not a good look. And the only conclusion that I can come up with is the Clintons, because the Clintons are the connecting factor between the Shaheens and Ghislane Maxwell.
Interesting.
And the Clinton Foundation is a recipient of USAID money. Actually, I'm not sure if Clinton Foundation is, but Vital Voices, which is Hillary Clinton's nonprofit, which is tied to the Clinton Foundation, that received quite recently $43 million in USAID money. And so there's a bunch of this thing. And Ghislane Maxwell had a nonprofit with a partner in New Hampshire who lived in Portsmouth called Terramar, and that she had it was her and Jeffrey Epstein, Amir Dasal from the UN, and this other partner whose name I forget, who was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And Terramar turned out to be a complete, shell non-profit worth nothing.
I'll have to read that article on that one. That's all new to me. The other thing that recently I caught reading some of your articles is this idea that, or this truth, I guess, that with the Catholic corruption and the molestations and everything that happened there, that there was actually evidence that the FBI and the CIA kind of went in and would actually tell people in jail, just say that you were molested, and by the end of next week we can have $50,000 in your bank account, or but kind of all these informants and all this kind of behind the scenes going on that actually would cause an innocent person to be convicted and the nefarious individuals were actually orchestrating this whole thing in order to create nonprofits or LLCs where they could get aid in the name of the victims and start to funnel and launder government money, and that it became like this big, huge thing. But at the same time, those same investigators were aware of what was going on at YDC, and they really didn't do much with that at all. I found that really interesting to see the receipts and all the information that you've dug up on that whole situation. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think that what I would love the public paying, watching this to think about is just second guess everything that you read in the media or you listen to in the media, and go and do your research. And there are easy places to do it. There's a site called opencorporates.com that you can look up the names of companies and who the officers are, which will take you to the Secretary of State's website, etc., etc. There's another one called influencewatch.org, which I really love, which tells you about Maximus Inc., Catholic Charities, various well-known politicians and so forth, and you can see all their controversies on there. My new favorite is a site called datarepublican.com, which lists all the nonprofits that are tied to USAID, the officers. So, through that, I discovered that Catholic Charities of New Hampshire is a recipient of something like $136 million in money, not necessarily from USAID, but although some of it I think is from USAID, but what it did show me is very clearly the payments going between DCYF and Catholic Charities, and so once the public starts to do their own research and understand the links and the web, then I think all of this becomes a lot easier to piece together and to understand why we've been so hoodwinked. And the media in New Hampshire, at least in my experience, is completely controlled by the non-profits with a vested interest in this money. So, for example, I believe that CASA New Hampshire, which is a non-profit, that's at this 2.5 Beacon Street address as well, CASA New Hampshire on its board has or did have one of the reporters from WMUR, and
is it Adam Sexton's wife? The organization that she's affiliated with comes up quite a bit too, doesn't it?
Yes, the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, the Director of Public Affairs for that, who's also or was on Senator Jean Shaheen's re-election campaign committee. She's married to Adam Sexton at WMUR, and WMUR has had exclusive entry into suits and criminal trials that the New Hampshire Coalition Domestic and Sexual Violence has a financial interest in.
It goes on and on. I want our listeners to know that you can email us at granitestatelive@gmail.com, and we will send you the links to some of these search engines where you can find out, you can plug in a person's name or an organization's name, and you can see where the taxpayer money, how much is going to that individual. The last one that you read off, the Republican, what was it?
Data Republican.
Data, yeah, it's fascinating. I plugged in a few names just in the last 48 hours, and it's if you've seen grazingthesurface.com, that's something that Violet has done here in New Hampshire. That's another fascinating. Dean Kamen and the PPE and the COVID money and everything coming in and out, and these people have just got their hands in the cookie jar, which is our taxpayer money, and it's quite terrifying, quite honestly, but people have done the research and done the diligence, and grazingthesurface.com has a whole map of how the Sununu family is connected to Kamen, is connected to Bill Gates, and it goes on and
Epstein, connected to Epstein.
What's that?
Dean Kamen is connected to Epstein.
I believe it. So
it
becomes a very small world. Which, I love that you started this with New Hampshire's first in the nation, because I don't know if you're a believer or not. I don't know if our listeners are a believer, but early on in the barn, I heard in my voice, you claim to be first in the nation, and you are on Granite. You're on solid ground. And your
Yes.
appeal to heaven and your historical history of your forefathers, this is landmark. Our Constitution predates the Constitution of the United States of America. It did start here in so many ways. And this soil, it's small enough and it's liberty-minded enough that if we all came together and we all worked together and we had the knowledge, we could take it back by storm and we could be the example for the rest of the country. Because a lot of this is systemic. What we saw at YDC, what we've seen for child abuse and sexual abuse and nefarious use of money, we're seeing it at the federal level with Elon, but it's across at the state level. It's in our school systems, it's in our towns, it's in our backyard. It's all the way, the layers all the way through. But the more we know, the more we start to realize how small the world really is. And it's our duty and our responsibility to do battle against evil and to show up and say that right there is not okay. And I've said over and over again, if we could cut out the corruption, we could take care of everyone. We could take care of them very, very well. And that's where we are. We're in a revolution. We're in a very historical time in the country. And it's absolutely beautiful. But I would encourage people, go to granitegrok.com, put in Claire Best's name, start to read some of the articles that how long have you been at this, Claire? When did you post your first article in research on New Hampshire?
Oh, probably about 3 years ago, I think.
Yes.
I mean, for a while, I mean, what happened to me, and retaliation is real, and it's very scary, and I'm a victim of it. What happened with me is, although I was doing research, I didn't say anything until July 2019. And in July 2019, ABC Good Morning America were going to broadcast an
we're going to have to
interview
go to
with
Kat. We're going to have to go to a break. My team's keeping me honest here. Keep us in suspense. I want to hear what happened to you because many of the watchers know what happened to me, and I'm prepared for more to happen to me. But we'll come back after this message.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
I'm Christine Ohm, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border and putting America first. Let me deliver a message from President Trump to the world. If you are considering entering America illegally, don't even think about it. Let me be clear. If you come to our country and you break our laws, we will hunt you down. Criminals are not welcome in the United States. For too long, weak leadership has left our borders wide open, flooding our communities with drugs, human trafficking, and violent criminals. Well, those days are over. Under President Trump, we are defending American families and restoring their safety. If you try to enter illegally, you will be caught. You will be removed, and you will never return. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. If you break it, you'll find consequences. Strong borders mean a stronger America. President Trump is making America safe again.
Jason, let's go see your room.
No, that's not right. How was it? Is it good?
.603-TALK. That's 833-603-TALK, which is 8255. Or you can send us a quick email at granitestatelive@gmail.com, granitestatelive@gmail.com, and we might be able to bring you on by video, and you can ask her a question as well. I'm curious to hear about the retaliation, but for our listeners, I get asked this all the time. Therese, aren't you afraid? Well, I have to say the good Lord will either bring me through it or he will take me home, and I'm okay either way, or he'll protect me. But, that's what they want. They want us to be afraid to stand up to evil. And evil is nothing but a little ant under my foot. That's how I look at it. My pastor, gave that analogy one Sunday morning. He said, Therese, evil is nothing but an ant under your foot. When you walk into that state house, you think of it that way, and you go in and you just stand up for what's right and what's true. And, that has given me a strength that I lean on. The Lord loves my little boys as much as I do. If he decides to take me home, I know he'll provide for them, and I can't walk in fear. That is just not an option for me. And I want to encourage all of our listeners to do the same, because I know there's a lot of whistleblowers out there. I know there's a lot of people who have a working knowledge. Now is the time. We're seeing it across the country. Now is the time to break the chains of bondage, of evil and captivity. And if you're an elected official and you found yourself in this mess, I walk through the state house and there's certain senators that have to look down at the ground when I walk by, because they know that I know what I know. And I feel bad for them, because they're truly in bondage. They're in so much corruption that they know that they're trapped. And so now's the time to set the captives free. But tell me, when we went into the break, you were telling us about retaliation. What did you experience, Claire?
Yes, so I hadn't really spoken up at all about what was going on in New Hampshire until 2019. And what happened in July 2019, I knew that ABC Good Morning America had conducted an interview with Owen Labrie upon his release from jail. And it was the first time that he got to speak publicly. And I knew the contents of the interview, and I knew that the interview contained reference to a phone call that he had received in 2017 while he was waiting for his appeals
and
from
Owen
one of
the victim at St. Paul's?
He was the accused, or the defendant in St.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so he had received a phone call in 2017 from his accuser's lawyer, who was partnered with Chuck Douglas in New Hampshire, and that lawyer was suing St. Paul's School, and he made a phone call to Owen in 2017, trying to bribe him and offer him exculpatory evidence to help Owen overturn his conviction in return for dirt on St. Paul's School so that they could go after the money. And in this phone call, this guy, Steve Silverman, he told Owen that the true victim of statutory rape was actually the son of the senior administrator at the school, actually by a female, and that his accuser's family, the Prout family, weren't nearly as angry with Owen as they were at St. Paul's School, but they wanted his help to go after the money. And he also told him that Owen wouldn't believe what kind of crooked deals Concord police were doing as regards St. Paul's School. So Owen didn't fall for the bribe. He went through appeals, lost appeals, went to jail, came out of jail, was asked by a number of broadcasters to speak, and ABC insisted on him doing the interview with them, so he went with them. And he told Amy Robach on ABC about this phone call he'd received. And she asked him, what did you feel after you hung up the phone? He said, I cried because I realized that my case was about power and money and nothing about justice. And so his understanding was that they had given a copy of this interview to the Prout family and their representatives for them to comment before the program was going to air a few days later. Well, the program never aired because Amanda Grady Sexton and the coalition and Congresswoman Ann Custer launched a national media and social media campaign and phone call campaign to get the program blocked.
Wow.
And so it never played. And I didn't realize at the time, I didn't realize till some years later, that it would have aired on July 18th, 2019, during a time when these same attorneys, the partners of the one that called Owen, Chuck Douglas and Stephen Kelly, were in mediation on a $70 million lawsuit against Dartmouth College, Rappuano and Does versus Dartmouth, which settled in early August 2019 for $14 million. And of that $14 million, the coalition got a substantial amount, which the judge failed.
Where's Owen today? Is he in a place where he could tell his story?
He might be. I know where he is, and I can ask him. He does live daily in fear of vigilante hate, so I would have to ask him. I think it's. I definitely know he'd like to tell it. It's a question of whether it's safe to tell it.
Right.
And he really has faced so much vigilantism, and it is largely thanks to the coalition, because the coalition, the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and Amanda Grady Sexton in particular, were behind the media and creating and controlling the media, and deciding to paint him as the equivalent of literally an Al-Qaeda terrorist, Donald Trump, a convicted rapist. Well, he's not a convicted rapist. He was acquitted of felony rape. He was found guilty of misdemeanor sexual assault, and he was found guilty of a felony for using a computer to solicit a minor. But that's only because New Hampshire, and actually this is for all parents with kids out there, New Hampshire does not have a law that is a Romeo and Juliet law for computers. So if two teenagers have sexual relations and they're 3 years or less apart and it's consensual, it's called a Romeo and Juliet law, and it's a misdemeanor. It means it was consensual sex. But the computer statute doesn't cover that. So you can be 15, you can be two 15-year-olds, one of you turns 16, and the 16-year-old invites you, as Owen did, to see a beautiful view, not even to have sex, to go and see a beautiful view. And that 16-year-old can suddenly be found guilty of a computer felony for communicating with a minor if the police decide that they want to turn this into a sexual assault case. And in Owen's case, the police knew, because there are phone calls that acknowledge it, the police knew that the DNA in the underwear included DNA that was not his, multiple other people, that the semen sperm portion of the underwear couldn't be attributed to him at all, which the state lab nurse said, or tech said under oath, that was not reported in the media. And and she actually said that she couldn't possibly say that he had sex with Chessie Prout because of this issue. And so, and the police in another recorded phone call with their own notes basically acknowledged that Chessie had said, "I have never said he raped me." So the problem you have in New Hampshire is you have and prosecutors who are not looking for the truth, but they're setting out with an agenda. They've decided that they already want to find whoever it is guilty, whether it's in juvenile court or whatever. And I looked into why is that. Well, it's money. It's money. Because to put someone on the sex offender registry list in New Hampshire, there is a ton of money involved. And there are major grants coming from the Department of Justice. There's over $900,000 has gone since 2014 to present. The New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence apparently is the manager of the sex offender registry. And so they want to keep that money flowing.
Wow.
And they don't disclose this when they're arguing or when they're lobbying. And they're not actually allowed to use money for lobbying.
It keeps messing with my head because you think of the Child's Trust Fund for children is a good thing. Domestic violence, to have advocates advocating for someone who's gone through. It's like they shelter everything behind stuff that, the live free or die state. Like how corrupt. I mean, we're scenic, we're beautiful. There's no helmet laws. There's no income tax, no sales tax. It's beautiful. How could there be anything like Epstein, connections here in beautiful New Hampshire? And it's they do that because they're that savvy with let's go where no one would ever expect. Let's go where no one would ever think. Public school budgets. We're not laundering money there. How dare you think that we would need a forensic audit on where all your property taxes might be going? And it's, we're trusting the not, we haven't done anything wrong, but we've trusted people who weren't trustworthy, right? We think our police, our judicial, these nonprofits, that they're doing good. They're there for the right reasons. But, where's a pedophile going to go? They're going to go where they have access to children. You know what I mean? And so they might be that school teacher. And our brains, when you're not evil, don't think the way an evil person necessarily thinks. But I want to thank Claire for coming on tonight. Encourage you guys to read her documentation and her diligence that she's done. To me, it's just been like reading a novel and knowing that we are first in the nation. And you know what? The only way we can set the captive free, knowledge is power. The truth is what will set us free. And we've got to do it at every single level. And we've got, the more we can connect the dots, the more we can link arms for liberty and stand strong with truth and show the receipts and the facts, the more I think we will get stronger to stop what has been allowed for Lord knows how long. Thank you, Claire, so much for coming on. I really, really do appreciate it. It's just been such a pleasure and honor to have you on tonight.
Well, thank you, Therese, and thank you both, and I really appreciate it. And also, I just thank you very much.
All right, love to have you back on again. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one of the biggest things I'm sitting back and I'm listening to this and the totality of this. I think, first of all, I think oversight is a wonderful thing. I think audits are a wonderful thing. It keeps people honest.
Right.
And I think one of the questions is always, well, who audits the auditors? That's the thing. I think in the Owen Marie case and in many other instances here, I've been in New Hampshire since 2015. Looking at a lot of the criminal cases, it has appeared as though there is a presupposition that the crime has been committed. Now we have to go out and we have to find substantiating evidence to prove that. It's not innocent until proven guilty. It's you're guilty now because we've already determined this. The court of public opinion. And so now the conviction has occurred. Now we have to go out and find the supporting evidence. And we're going to gloss over and we're going to overlook, I should say, evidence that may be exculpatory because it doesn't fit our narrative. It doesn't fit the conviction of this person, which we've already done.
It's worrisome. Our founding fathers, they knew what they were doing when they said a jury of your peers. To bring that jury in, to hear all the evidence and all the information and then decide. And I was reading somewhere else tonight that it's one of the counties here in New Hampshire. I wish I had it in front of me. But the amount of cases that actually go to trial are so few and far because they do a plea bargain. And the amount of time with the plea bargain is the amount of time you would be staying in jail before you would get in front of a jury. So people want to get out of jail. They want to get back to their families. They never get in front of a jury. And it was like only 2% of cases ever make it into a jury trial where, that just shouldn't be the way. That's not what our founding fathers wanted. That's how will we get to justice if we have corrupt judges? It's worrisome, but we can change it. I believe we can.
Well, that was absolutely an eye-opening interview there, and that's the kind of, as I'm sitting back and I'm listening to this, and it's more and more and more questions that come up. So I think it's definitely. It's definitely something I'd like to be able to spend more time on. One of the questions that I do have is, we've only got about 2.5 minutes here, but I'm curious about this. One person that I have not seen or heard really anything from recently has been Mike Gill, A State of Corruption. What is up with Mike Gill?
So I actually spoke to someone today who called me, and he is very closely, directly linked to Mike Gill. And I said, how is Mike doing? Because the last time I talked to Mike, I think Mike has a lot of truth with trauma. I think he had some real truth. He wanted to get out. He saw the corruption and very driven to get that information out. And to the point where that desperation, and so I think there was some trauma mixed in there, and sometimes it was really hard to get him to focus when I would have questions for him on the phone. But this person this morning, I said, how is Mike doing? He said he is doing very, very well, and he has peace because he knows what information he had has finally gotten to those who can do something about it. And so I do believe we have, the General Flynn's, we have Tulsi Gabbard, thank you. When she was here, a campaign with Bolduc, I looked her straight in the eye and I said, we have real problems here. There, Maxwell, the money, I think there's a lot of money here that is being sheltered. I'm really concerned about it. And her eyes got glassy. Caroline Levitt, she did a whole interview on YDC victims and had them on her show when she was covering, the talk radio. There's people that have direct connection, and I think that there's enough information and enough evidence of it all that it is getting to those who are going to be able to do something about it.
Well, I want to thank certainly our guest tonight, Claire Best, as well as New Hampshire Republican State Representative Michael Grainger.
Yes.
So good program tonight. Appreciate.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be back. I'm glad I'm finally. I kicked this. Last week was good. It was a good break because, man, I tell you, I wound up getting smacked a second time.
That's what happens when you get married.
With this head cold. Well, no, it wasn't that. It had nothing to do with that. It was the head cold, so it wound up killing me. But again, don't forget, you can always catch archive versions of the program, GraniteGrok.com, on the Granite Grok X channel, Facebook feed, and then just look for Right America Media on Facebook, Getter, Cloud Hub, and X on ramtv.live. We will be back next Tuesday night with another live edition of Granite State Live. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.